We're in the.
We're going to bring this board of directors budget meeting to order at 6:30. First thing we're going to do is flag salute. I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
So the first order of business we're going to have is roll call, and we're doing that mainly because of Zoom. So we're going to start over here. Tracy Rook.
Present.
Melissa.
Present.
Dewey.
Present.
Kay.
Present.
Steve. Present. Bill.
Present.
Mr. Wells.
Present.
Melinda.
Present.
And I, Terry Carmelite, is present. Okay, so the next order of business we have is review, adjust, approve the agenda. Okay, so
Yeah, so I think we need to make some adjustments to the agenda because the actual calendar that we approved as a board is different. With the budget hearing at a later date. Which gives the community is we discussed to review what happened after this. And then respond on the date that we approved for a budget hearing, was June 14th. It's actually published in the budget calendar.
okay, so what we're going to do is this budget has been out since May 3rd for the public, not only to come get it at the school or they could get it online, if I'm correct. So people got it either online or from the school in a hard copy. So what we're going to do is we're going to give audience time. That's one of the adjustments I like to do. I'd like to make number 8 audience time after the hearing. If there is any questions from the community or anybody online, type in there, they can go on the chat and ask questions. And then after that, you know, if we so see it, we'll entertain a motion for the proposed budget.
Sorry, that's not the same thing as the budget hearing. The budget hearing is supposed to be separated by a certain number of days after this meeting. There's a formal period of time set. We talk about why we changed the calendar. So changing it on the agenda, but the budget hearing in this meeting tonight. Moved back to the public and is different than the published by the child.
Yes, what page is that on?
We have the date for the budget hearing on June 14th.
For some confusion, just on that, renaming number 7 as budget review, budget consideration, budget review or something like that. That takes care of that activity and preserve the budget hearing for June 14th or 16th.
Change number 7 to
It's a different title, so it's not confusing than this title. Budget meeting, budget review.
7 and 8, I think, have to be, the 14th.
The total budget taken care of by the committee.
Well, we have a calendar for the 14th that's.
I don't have that one in mind.
Page 5, it's on page 5.
The budget will be approved, but some of that back and take this tonight, or the budget is brought to the budget hearing in June.
And the big taxes is on June 14th. Before our agenda.
Tonight's approval in June will be an adoption.
And the budget committee approval is separate from the board's
Correct.
approval, which they would happen.
At the next board.
Right.
Okay, you okay with that?
So to clarify, the hearing,
So we're gonna change number 7 to budget meeting. And then,
budget review,
or budget review,
but that could be comments if there's any community feedback.
okay, and then number 8, we're gonna have audience time for any questions from people that are on Zoom. And then number 9 will be a motion to approve proposed budget and set tax levy.
No, the tax levy for the June 14th.
Okay. So it'd be a motion to approve the proposed budget by the budget committee. Okay. So Amber, did you get that?
Yep, got it.
Okay, would you reread it to me?
Yeah.
Stated.
Number 7 will be adjusted to meeting or budget review. Number 8 will read audience time. Number 9 will be motion to approve proposed budget by budget team. And number 10 will be adjourned.
Okay. So with that being said, is there any more discussion about that, or with that, I entertain a motion to approve the adjusted agenda?
And I actually have one point.
Yeah.
I'm actually not sure like where that part fits in, but it actually has to do with budget conflict of interest of budget committee member.
Okay.
So I don't know if I should ask that now, but it could potentially affect chair. Or something could affect member.
I guess I don't understand what you're trying to say.
One of our members of our budget committee is being paid by the district. They would not be allowed to participate in the budget committee process, so I just have a couple of clarification questions for one of the budget committee members.
I guess you're responding to Bill on Park and Reps.
Well, and also for Wednesday Academy and as a coach for the district.
Okay, so,
Well, I don't coach the district, and I don't keep on the academy.
Okay.
Paid by Parks and Rec. But
Okay, but we
my
set the
whole
parts.
focus, I would not leave.
No, I just need to ask some clarifying questions. I want to make sure there's no conflict of interest. As part, part of the Wednesday Academy, I thought that I understood that there were some stipends for Wednesday Academy instructors. So you can just say, as a Wednesday Academy instructor, I don't receive any compensation.
Well, haven't instructed Wednesday academy since prior to the pandemic, so a year ago, you probably right. This year, I'm instructing Wednesday academy. And my coaching video levels is always been volunteer.
Always volunteer. Okay. When you do Wednesday Academy, that virtually Zoom, is it paid?
It is a paid position, but I, subject matter that I thought, I'm not sure that would be appropriate for teaching them criminal justice, but the way things are in the world, I would stay away from the. That's my personal take.
And so I would caution you that moving forward to remain in this position, that they're not going to any, any position to be volunteer, that they're going to get conflict of interest. Because that would be and I'm also curious in the relationship with the Parks and Rec. We do appropriate money for Parks and Rec. Your
Melissa, I don't think it's an issue because they're just here to help approve the budget as a budget committee in the community, but the actual budget is going to be approved by the board. So I don't think it's an issue.
Well, even our community members, if we can have a community member that's incidentally impacted, like a spouse,
Well,
but
yeah.
somebody that's receiving direct compensation is a conflict of interest when it says so in the parameters of budget committee members. So that's why I wanted to clarify. So it's not an issue of spouse, right, that's indirect, but it is a conflict if there's direct compensation involved in impacting your salary. So that's why.
What do you think, Hattie?
He hasn't been compensated, he hasn't been paid a year. And again, we don't know if that program's gonna continue. As far as Parks and Rec, that's basically he's working for a vendor that we pay. So I don't think that's a conflict of interest because he's not financially gaining from that. That's paying for the program itself. But I can understand where you know, a paid employee can't serve on
I don't think we would be approving anything for his wage anyway. That would be through Parks and Rec.
No,
anyway.
it's not that, we just set the approximately that.
Well, I know what you're saying, but it isn't a direct compensation from the district to Mr. Lindmark.
That's correct.
It doesn't,
So I mean, I don't see it as an issue.
Yeah, as far as I'm concerned, it's second party anyway. It's no different than Steve's wife working for the district, or Melinda's husband working for the busing.
so those are.
Everybody in here's got relatives.
Right,
You've
those
got a lot
are,
of
those,
relatives.
I know they're indirect.
Those are examples of indirect,
I understand that, but
but a direct tie is when we're approving a chunk of budget that pays your salary, that's direct. So
right, so my,
ethics commission has given examples about that, so that's why I wanted to clarify.
so Melissa, my question is, why didn't this come up when we approved him when you were here then?
I actually wasn't at that meeting, I was absent.
Well, why didn't you let us know that when it came up to you,
Because it doesn't
instead of
really,
bringing it up right now tonight?
because this is the public forum and this is the place to ask questions, not through an email where I can potentially create a serial meeting or something like that. And, you know,
You
this
could
is,
have came up to any of us, mentioned it earlier.
I would rather have things be out in public and open than in back channels and emails. There's people directly to direct, if you guys are fine with it, we'll move on.
Can I ask a question?
Yes.
What we're looking at has already been done. It's not the proposed one for next year, I want.
No,
It's
it
what-
is.
No, this is the.
Oh, this is the proposed one.
Yes.
Oh, okay. I thought it was the one that was already done. Right.
It is. So,
In relation to the Wednesday Academy, we already considered all that and made sure that that would not be a conflict going forward. So this has already been discussed to make sure that there was no conflict before we extended the invitation. You Patty with the Parks and Rec pieces.
Does anybody else have any issue with Mr. Lennart being on? Okay,
I move we accept the adjusted agenda.
okay, then moved, is there a second?
Second,
It's been moved and seconded to approve the adjusted agenda with 8 being budget review, 9 being open for public audience time, and 10 being,
7 being the budget.
yeah, 7 being, 8 being open for audience, 9 9 motion, 10 being adjourned. Tracy? Aye. Melissa?
aye.
Dewey? Aye. Okay,
Aye.
Steve? Bill? Larry? Linda?
Aye.
Okay, chair votes aye. Okay, passes. So I'm going to read some meeting norms. And Amber, did you get this? Bill put it up above? No. The meeting norms? How we're gonna run this meeting?
No, I don't have that. I'm sorry.
So the meeting norms that I have here is we're going to be civil and respectful to one another. We're going to listen to understand, ask questions and to respect the questions of others, confer in good faith and best interest of the school district. In a public meeting, individual names of staff members are not allowed to be discussed. Okay, with that, I'm just going to explain a little bit before we get to the next one what the cup issue is, or what the cup thing is. So green means go, red means stop. So the person that's presenting, which is going to be Abby, when she sees a red cup, if you guys have a question to ask after she's done or during her presentation, if she's done with her presentation, she'll call on me. Okay. So now we're going to do the election of budget committee chair. Anybody from the community interested in being the chair? I did last year. You would do it again, sir? Okay, somebody want to nominate Steve? So moved. Okay, I'll second that. So it's been, that's okay. So it's been moved and seconded for Steve Brandt to be chair of this budget committee. All in favor? Tracy? Aye. Melissa?
Aye.
Dewey? Aye. Kate?
Aye.
Steve? Bill? Larry? Melinda?
Aye.
Chair votes aye. Okay. Vice chair. Okay, is Steve.
So next on the agenda is the superintendent budget.
No, no vice chair.
Oh, you need a vice chair. Do you have a nomination for vice chair?
I'll do it, nobody else wants.
I move to elect Terry Kamali as budget committee vice chair for the 2021-2022 budget committee.
So moved. Is there any objection? Seeing no objections, Terry Kamali is the vice chair.
No, we got to vote.
Oh, we got to vote.
Names.
Okay. Bill?
Yes.
Ron? Melinda? Brad?
Yes.
He doesn't have to vote.
No, they don't vote.
Oh, they don't vote. Okay.
Aye.
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 Aye. Okay. So the vice chair is going to be Terry Kamali.
One more. Go ahead.
No, the reporter, do we have to vote a reporter? Do we have to do? Okay, then I'll move that Amber be our reporter.
I second it.
Okay. Let's take a vote for the reporter to be
Amber.
So we're gonna go around the room. So, Joel, Melinda, over there.
Aye.
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 So the reporter is. We now ready to do the,
Yes.
so moving on, we'll now have Brad Fickner give us the superintendent's budget message. Is that in our?
It is.
It's one.
Thank you. Good evening. Before I begin, I just received some feedback that our meeting is being garbled for those watching online. So I will ask, I'm finding the way, but I ask if anyone minds if I read this without it.
I have no objections.
No objection at all.
I think it's great.
The Jefferson School District budget message is intended to provide a summary of the proposed budget and how this budget differs from the prior year. In developing this budget, our focus continues to be on the district's mission, but we will prepare all students to successfully navigate their transition to life beyond high school by providing qualified, rigorous instruction, providing a safe environment, and fostering a culture of student learning. As of the publication of this document, the state endured a year of unprecedented economic challenges due to COVID-19, wildfires, freezes, and job losses.
However, the economy is proving more resilient than anticipated, and income has returned to pre-pandemic levels. In general, no major negative impacts on Oregon's revenue outlook are anticipated for the 2019-21 or 21-23 biennium. In fact, revenues for the 19-21 biennium were up across the board slightly compared to numbers released in November. Net general fund and lottery resources are up $642.7 million. This is good news in terms of closing out the current two-year budget cycle, and all but assured no budgetary impacts on schools during the 2020-21 school year. Funding for the state school fund, Measure 98, and the SSA-SIA will not be reduced based on these projections. And the growth in revenue bolsters state revenues to deal with any unexpected shortfalls. This is welcome news considering the challenges we've endured. I think it is important to include an update on the corporate activity tax and the Student Success Act. The corporate activity tax, which funds the Student Success Act, is projected to gross over $2.292 billion during the 21-23 biennium. This is up $55.9 million from the September forecast. Our rough estimate is that this would equate to an $800 million student investment account, which is SIA, over the next 2 years, or about $400 million per year. By comparison, districts are receiving $150 million in the 2021 school year. In looking ahead to the 21-23 biennium, despite the stabilization of the 19-21 budget and the significant state reserves, the state is still facing a budget deficit in the 21-23 biennium in the range of $2 billion. This deficit assumes no reserves are tapped and no potential future federal aid. With respect to reserves, however, at the close of the 19-21 biennium, the state is now projected to have a $3.94 billion in reserve funds available, which is in the general fund, the education stability fund, and the rainy day fund. This is equivalent to a 14.1% of the state's general fund revenue. Oregon's next economic forecast isn't due until late May 2021. Therefore, this budget is built on the official estimate issued by the Oregon Department of Education in March 2021. The 2021-23 biennial budget and state school fund distributions are predicated on a $9.3 billion state appropriations split, 49 to 51%. This amount has not yet been amended by the legislature as of the date of this document. The district staff are proposing a budget that allows the district to continue services to students and move toward our continuous improvement plan based on existing estimates. At the same time, staff are working to establish potential reductions should we face a shortfall in our state school fund grant in the 2021-22 fiscal year. Regardless of the many challenges we face, we are committed to developing a budget that will best serve the students of our community. The steps taken will allow us flexibility to move quickly as the economic story in Oregon continues to unfold. Brad Paper, Superintendent, Jefferson School District.
Well, Road.
Now we'll move on to evening call. Yes. Okay,
Yeah, so, so the governor, since we wrote this, has, made a couple of statements. With a little bit of pushback on the 9.3 dollar. So I don't know if that changes anything from last.
I just got an email this afternoon around 4 o'clock. The Ways and Means Committee passed a 9.1 plus 2 from the rainy day fund, or one of the additional funds, 200 million to bring it to 9.3. That's what the state.
Not yet, so. It goes on and on. Ways and Means
Ways and Means
Subcommittee, and it's going into the Ways and Means Committee, and then it's going to our alert that from the OSBA was to, you know, kind of be on the lookout, you know, kind of worried about how it might go after her.
Makes it interesting.
Yeah, okay, all right.
Any other questions? We'll move on to budget presentation.
Okay, so I'm gonna be on page, starting on page 8 on our revenue pie graph. And I just wanna remind everyone that this is giving us spending authority. Because we cannot predict the future, right? So we're taking our best guess of what our revenue is going to be. Because obviously our state is not determined how state school fund is gonna be dispersed. We are budgeting on $9.3 billion for the state school fund. And we are taking our best guess at this budget. So I just wanted to make sure that this is basically to install spending authority for our district to spend money. So as long as we can approve the budget, we'll have spending authority, and then knowing that if things change, anytime after the budget has been approved and adopted, we will have to do supplemental budgets if the budget changes by fund function of 10%. So, so that would be our next step in the event that we come in either we more revenue or less revenue. So, yes.
We got some feedback that you're looking for a whole kind of through.
Okay.
There you go.
All right. So this is setting spending authority. A budget is based on our best guess in time for the next year. Okay. All right. So I'm going to move on to page 9 for our state school fund. For the general fund. Okay, so we're just focusing on general fund, Fund 100. And this is the revenue that we're forecasting. And what I like to do with Brad is take the last 3 years of our actual revenue that we have received. Look at the trend of our property taxes and what they've increased by, and increase our property tax on that average. And this year was based on 3.5%. Okay. Taking into consideration our state school fund on a $9.3 billion state school fund from our Oregon Governor's Office, I've predicted 7.2 million. Okay. And you can see that under 3101 state school fund, general fund, because that's really where a lot of our funding comes from, is the state school fund and our property taxes. Okay. And we're about approximately 50,000 less than last year. And the reason of that is because after going through the year that we've had student enrollment has declined. And so we're predicting that we're going to have 820 students. If that increases or decreases, I have the opportunity to reach out to ODE and have them, because I'm forecasting what our students are, we are forecasting what our students are going to be in the next year, in December of the previous year. So December, we guessed 820 students. Now that could change, but we have the opportunity with ODE to reach out to them and ask them to open it up if it goes up or down. So they can adjust our state school funding throughout the year. So at the end of the year, we're not having a huge deficit, okay? And then if our budget changes 10% up or down within that fund function, I would be doing a supplemental budget that would be given to our board with an appropriations for them to sign off on it. Okay? Is there any questions on the revenue?
I have a question. Where are our rentals coming? So I mean, I can actually guess where our rentals are coming from. But you predicted a bigger increase. It's pretty significant from our actuals that we had in 2019 and 2020. So I was curious what the district office thought might drive the rental revenue up.
It could potentially be the gym. It could be if we have like volleyball tournaments
at our schools. It could be renting out our amphitheater. And putting $7,000 in here is just making sure we have, if we don't receive this money, we really don't spend the money, right? So we have to make sure, we're always looking at the budget every month when I give the financials to our board to make sure that we're within our spending authority, right, and being very conservative. So I would rather budget high, I would rather guess high, than have to come back to the board and say we need to do a resolution to increase this revenue. Does that answer your question?
It does, it just seems quite a bit higher based on the way you explained how you can do the averages, so that's a lot higher.
Right,
When you don't really have data to show that you might,
All right, so the next pages, these are gonna be the expenditures, right? So we just looked at the revenue, it's 10.9 million, okay? $10,992,401. Well, now we're gonna look at the expenditure side of how this money is going to be spent for the general fund, okay? The first one is elementary school programs. And I'm just gonna go through these pages and ask if you have any questions. No question? Melissa, can you fix your comment so I don't call it? Okay, the next page is elementary extracurricular. Any questions? No, go on. Page 15 is middle school programs. None and one. Next page is middle school extracurricular. Next page is high school programs. Page 21 is.
go back to 19, sorry.
Sure.
The instruction services, 311,
Yes,
that bumped up
yes.
in preschool. I didn't know if that was, or I know we've had a lot of changes and some things have updated, so. that was-
Pardon me, Melissa, which one?
Oh, on page 19, 11. So we've gone from like, 44,000 to 6,000, 61,000, 71.
These are,
I didn't know if that, like, was a particular.
it is, and there's a reason why we got to that. This is for our substitute costs for the high school. So 311 is our substitutes. And nowadays in our new world, our new normal, we're really making sure that our staff, if they don't feel well, they stay at home. So we are predicting we're gonna have higher expenditures in our substitute costs.
So we also have the line, 121 is also substitute cost to the license.
Yes, and we don't pay our substitutes directly. We now pay them through Willamette JSD. And so we're paying a third-party vendor, so we don't have the associated payroll costs.
Got it. Do we have a way to update or clarify on those lines in the budget? So, we may ask this question every single slide per year, you may say that, and every time we may ask that, because we forget instruction services is actually third party vendor for substitute costs. Is there a way to add a note on that and to add additional information?
I can add additional information, this information, the coding for like 311, the instruction services, that's basically coming from our PPM, our program accounting manual that the state of Oregon provides for us on how to do our account.
That's, I would feel like, that completely reasonable, like, maybe medical, like, you can't change that, but like, if they can say instruction services.
Yeah, I can add
substitutes or something
Yep.
like that.
as I go through them throughout the
Probably
year.
wouldn't even have like linked, I'm like, oh, I consider
Right.
with the thought about it.
Right, but it can be 311
is instructional services, but it can have other means behind it too, so it might be a lump amount in there, but I just know that this one is for our substitute costs. So I can make these more explanatory, kind of give a little more information on them as I go throughout the year. I may not hit every one of them, but I'd be happy to do that.
Probably will never ask again on that one if I, I mean, I might remember from here on out.
Right.
I might forget by next year.
Line item 340 travel, there's a significant reduction in cost. Is that due to COVID-related circumstances with respects to conferences, things of that sort? Where we're doing Zoom, televised stuff?
Yes.
Just for clarification purposes.
Okay, the next one is high school extracurricular. Yes, sorry. I didn't
Board
see
members
that.
and other people on the committee, when you speak, would you remove your masks?
I'm
Because
sorry.
I can't even understand you.
I'm sorry.
I haven't heard what she said all night.
Oh,
Thank you, Terry.
I'm sorry, Mr. Wells. Mr. Wells, are you hearing me?
Pardon?
Are you hearing me?
Yes, I can hear you, but I
Okay.
can't hear her with that mask on.
Okay. All right.
Looking down and
I
talking
can't
at the
hear
same
me
time.
either, so. All right. The next one is on page 21. It's high school extracurricular.
Oh, I was having. Is that one position, the extracurricular? It says licensed salaries, but it looks like it's maybe only one position.
Yes.
What's that for? Because we have more. Oh. Is that our, right? I know, but we can know the position though.
Yes, yes.
Okay. I've asked for this before to actually have a list of all of our positions, like, I usually get to see that in other government type things where, it wouldn't just be something really vague, but you might see, high school principal, obviously, who that is, but actually positions and people aren't, newspapers request this all the time, where not necessarily salaries aren't one of those things that are particular information. The state of Oregon has to give those up all of the time to the Oregon and they do those.
In school, for
salary
for
requests.
21 years. I have not asked anyone this.
Well, it happens, I've seen, but on the other side of that actually. But it would be nice to see, I don't need to see names associated with that, but it would be really nice to see like all of our positions. And kind of like where they're at, just to get a better picture of that. Sometimes it's hard to understand, I don't even need to see a math teacher, or, that granular, but knowing our FTEs, like our actual administrator, athletic director, would be really helpful in understanding, like how our district is, our personnel is spread out.
How about Brad and I look into that? Any other question?
No statement.
Okay.
All due respect, I agree exactly with you, so I understand that. I think that's important information. But we're running through a budget document tonight. And, we can deal with that in additional board meeting.
Lots of times you actually see that, like at the beginning of you might see that at the beginning of the high school, and you might see like,
How many
like
teachers, how many?
like 15 classified, might see 15 certified teachers, 12 IAs, one janitorial, one athletic, you might see all of those things, and then you understand, oh, we have all of these staff, and this, and without just see salary at the bottom, you would understand, oh, this is all of our FTE, and this is all of our personnel costs associated with this building. They may be funded, right, or maybe funded for those, but it's really nice to see this whole picture of of our buildings and the personnel associated with them. If somebody's split between two buildings, because that could happen, you could have, for example, a librarian that's 25 activity here, like at the middle school, and 0.5 activity at the elementary school, they might show us 0.5 media specialists, you know, and they're between two different locations. Because we actually have to vet it by campus now.
Can I ask you a question?
Sure.
It would be hard to tie it back to this.
Because of the funding, because the way we lay out our budget, the way school districts lay out their budget for funding, it's based on the fund function.
So
And-
you wouldn't be able to show us, like, where we're looking. You wouldn't be able to show us, you know, while we're looking, right now, we're in general fund at the high school, just like we have all these licensed salaries, you wouldn't be able to show us the personnel of the high school and the people that are all funded.
Yeah, Brad and I can look into that and work on it and figure out a format that would work for our board.
It would be nice to see that, and we can see that, oh, these are our administrators there, and our classified stuff there, and certified there, and the district office. You know,
Yeah, maybe some examples and maybe you can pick one of maybe a
Yeah,
couple. and-
I've seen that with other school districts and trainings where, you know, they give us. Other school districts where I financial officer, maybe more staff, obviously, but.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Well, my question may have been answered in this ongoing discussion that's going on here, but function 210 is the PERS, and I notice it's less now.
Yes.
Maybe it's coming from somewhere else, but why is North less than that?
It is less. Our PERS has dropped, our PERS rates, and I was trying to find out before I got here.
I mean, it's kind of unbelievable it's dropped because it's
It
PERS
has,
has normally been going up and up.
Yes, and then in this next biennium, in the current year, OPSERV was 8.27, and PERS was 14 point something. It has gone down to half that side, and I have it in this book, but it may take me a few minutes and may just circle back to it when I find it, after we get through this part.
So why is that? Because of the stock market has been doing so well?
Yes, because it actually, the way they redistributed how our PERS are being invested, it's based on our retirement date. So for example, myself, according to PERS, I still have 14 years to work, right? So my money is invested in more of a higher yielding. But when I get closer to retirement, it comes out of there and it goes into a more secure yield. So we actually earned more last year in the PERS funds. And so that also equates to what our retirees, the earnings that are in our accounts. And
Well, I'm just surprised because never really heard how the effect PERS has been on most municipalities. So it's really refreshing, I guess, to see it.
well, it is.
all like that.
Right, and that's one of the things that we have been able to save in when we get to it, the expenditures for our associated payroll costs have gone down. And so that's why we were able to not have to reduce our budget as much, is because we had over 200,000 in savings in PERS.
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah,
I have a quick question too that might answer stuff for everybody. We have a PERS bond as well. We have a PERS bond as well. Right. Did our PERS bond change? Like
our PERS bond rate, no, I kept it at 13.5%.
Okay. And then did our employees' PERS contribution rate change across the board where employees were contributing more? Did that,
No, it's still 6%.
they contributed their 6%? And then there was a change that happened with PERS where some tiers ended up paying more PERS. Did that impact the district?
Are you talking about 6%?
No.
We're talking about,
Last year, they changed PERS to make a tier 2 start contributing to tier 1.
yeah, you are talking about the 6%, and that's the IAP redirect. And so OPSERV paid
They have 0.75 of their 6% goes into their pension portion. And 2.25% of that 6% goes into the pension portion for tier 1 and tier 2.
That's what, the 2%,
It's
the
the
2% of
Yes.
the percent they're all in.
Yes, and then we have an option to pay after tax as employees, since my 2.25% is going into my pension. I have an option to sign up for the redirect to pay that 2.25% into my IAP account after tax.
So I guess what I was asking, if that's what brought down.
No,
Okay, because there was a huge
it's 6%.
concern about the PERS fund and how the cost drivers were high. And I thought that was one of the things that they were doing to train them on cost drivers.
Right, no, the 6% is a steady 6%. It's how PERS disperse that to them once they receive it.
I thought that they did that to help with the cost on the employees. So
Yes, they did, yes. Years before, prior to 2003, we used to put a portion of our 6% into the
This
pension.
was just last year.
I understand
The
that.
legislature did that.
Yes,
It
the
wasn't
House Bill
just
2016. Yes, it's
But-
a redirect.
Right, but I thought that they did that to bring the PERS fund down to remove some of the burden, some of the.
Yes, they did,
cost
that's
drivers.
correct. Yes, they
Okay.
did, yes.
Okay.
Yeah. It's, PERS is convoluted, yeah. Okay, so I'm on page 23, programs for talented and gifted. Page 25, restricted programs for students with disabilities. Page 27, structured learning center. This one, when I first came here, I sat down with our SPED director and we actually moved our staff around to represent more of what they do, so this is just history. Page 29, extended 4-year programs. Page 31 is high school. Yeah.
The classified salaries for the extended school year programs, we haven't talked about extended school programs at our last school board meeting. This increase in the proposed 21-22 is a direct result for those capital school or extended school programs. correct?
This is totally separate.
Okay,
This is for our SPED program,
okay,
which we need to offer to students that need a little extra support during the summertime,
okay.
right? And because of COVID, the last year, we didn't have it, and this is, we budgeted for this last year, so we didn't have it in July of 20. Right?
Okay.
And so that's why you don't see it in the actuals, because of what we're going through right now. So this is totally separate than our summer learning program. Okay, high school life skills, we also reclassified these as well, so this is history.
Can I ask, so I thought we added high school life skills position under SIA.
We're not there yet.
Oh,
We're gonna get there. Oh, that's under special revenue funds.
okay, so that we won't see that.
This is
Oh, yeah,
general.
this is for double fund, sorry.
Yeah.
Never mind.
Okay, so page 33, less restrictive programs, students with disabilities. So this is where we reclassified some of those salaries and other account numbers to account for them better. Page 35, public alternative programs. This is our program to pay for credits for the high school. Page 37, high school alternative.
Patty,
Yes,
the alternative now, is this high school credit makeup or
no, this is the
college?
college. This
Okay,
is
college
we pay
credit.
to Shemeketa for our students to take math.
Yeah, okay.
The next one is on page 37, it's high school alternative education. This is like our Odyssey wear. Page 39, yes.
No, I heard it up.
But you would said it, so you're gonna, you might ask it.
Oh, high school alternative education classified salaries. Is there an increase in FTE for this?
FTE stayed the same.
Okay. Pardon?
We did budget for a COLA and a step increase, but we are in negotiations. And so at this point, we just have to predict what we don't know. We kind of look at the CBAs that we have, what are they getting? And then we predict on what's going to happen.
Amber, is the audience still having trouble hearing us?
Not that I've seen.
Okay. Because you keep talking, my mask is up, and I'm just not used to this. Okay,
We're good?
yeah.
All right.
Mine's for the next one, actually.
Page 39, English second language.
Yes, so I had a question about the reduction in FTE
Yes.
for our ESL.
Yes, we are cleaning this up because we had 3 staff members that were, a portion of their salary were being paid out of ESL, but that didn't really reflect our program. So we moved them around into the correct funding. 1111, if you looked at that page, you would notice the FTE increase, licensed staff increase, and that's because we moved them out of ESL. And so we're just trying to predict on how our programs need to work for next year. Okay.
Well, there's a huge reduction in 102,
Yes, that's classified staff.
okay?
And so
Go ahead.
when we had a couple of our employees leave and that were classified in 1920, that we replaced with a teacher, seeing the need to downsize our class size. And so instead of replacing 2 IAs, we were able to get a teacher.
Okay,
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 does that make sense?
yep.
All right, page 41, attendance services.
I'd like to make a comment right here. This is probably for Brad, maybe.
Take your mask off.
So, for me, something that would go really far in helping me understand programs like this. So where I might be, it might appear like I'm grilling you on this, where I'm down into the nuances and I can't see the big picture, where we haven't really reduced staff for our English language learners. I'm worried about, I want to make sure that the kids are being really well served. Having a narrative that explains, like, this is our program, and this is how we're serving our students. I might not necessarily, like, it absolutely matters where those positions are funded from. But if I understand as a board member that we have 1 full-time teacher and 3 instructional aides or whatever kind of staff makeup that are serving these students, and this is, you know, a brief narrative of what that program is doing. And it may be in a different part of the budget documented, or, and I know that that's possibly onerous to add into the budget, but that's where the narrative piece helps myself as a board member, helps our community and our parents when they go through this, that transparency piece where they don't maybe feel like things are moving around and they're like, oh, yeah, okay, like, we didn't lose any positions, we didn't lose any FTE, our money's being really well spent, right? And it feels better to everyone. I am committing to you that I will spend way less time asking these types of questions. And it may be later, and I'm like, okay, well, the funding's here and the funding's here. But if I understood at the bigger picture level, that like, all right, yeah, we've got these positions here, this would go a lot faster.
So you're talking about a small narrative on this blank page.
Maybe, right,
Reflective.
or it may even be like, if that was at the high school, or maybe a program might be split between, you know, if we had this isn't gonna apply to every single solitary thing, right? But our English as a second language program that you're explaining to me right now is basically split between a couple of funds, right? And this may be only the high school in this instance, right? So maybe there's a little tiny section about the high school that explains the programs at the high school, the FTE that's in there, you know, the English as a second language. There may be different things that are funding that, right? Maybe it's made up of grants, maybe it's made up of general fund, maybe it's made up of SIA money, like, you know, that's, you may find that down in the training or even here. But if I know, yeah, that's really, really helpful. And then like, great, we've still got all of the FTE. We can look down in here later and we can see how it's justified and how it's funded. That's the important part of like the overall feeling of it and understanding how everything is. It's way easier to work through. Like, same thing with understanding our teachers. Like, you know, we've got 14. What's that? Yeah, we have 14 teachers at the high school. You know, they teach these different subjects. Like, oh yeah, we've got all our subjects covered and all of our electives, and we might not necessarily be concerned about how it's funded, right? That may come in from different grants or different pieces or general fund. But then, like when we talk about community members or, you know, people ask about that, they, like, I don't know, why don't I see the, why it's a women's teacher in the general fund? You know, it takes us a while to sort through and it's funded by the side. So anyway, I'm really helpful. Thank you.
And to add to that, during the previous administration, this board had difficulties understanding that with respects to how the FTEs work and how they were divided. So we can make sure that there's constant feeling that we were understaffed, which we were understaffed. So I'm just concerned with that with regards to Melissa's comment.
Okay.
I have a question. So, and what I'm hearing you say is these FTEs were lost when we lost, they just went somewhere else.
Yes.
Maybe that would be the best thing to say. This is reduction, but it's actually somewhere.
Okay, page 43, student safety. Page 45, counseling services.
Oh, never mind. I don't remember that.
Page 47, nursing services. Page 49, psychology services, psychological services.
Yeah. I wanted to ask about the nursing services. I thought we had made sure, or we had heard that we were getting a nurse or having nursing services. So I wanted to get clarification on that. They don't seem money for it.
Right, and that's because we don't pay it for it out of our budget. We use our local service plan dollars with the line at JSD, so it's our nursing services.
Okay.
Page 49, psychological services, and you'll see on the next page, on page 51, it's other psychological services. We get our services for our psychologists from the line at JSD, so it's in other services. We use a little bit of our local service plan as well as paying out of the general fund.
Okay. So same kind of thing, but this part of it we pay for with general fund.
Page 53, audiology services. Page 55, 2190, student support services. Page 57, curriculum development.
This is part of our this is finishing, oh my gosh. This is finishing up our math book purchases.
No, this is paid for the math books. This is setting aside 30,000 if the event that we need to go out and get more curriculum, we need to do some more curriculum. We want to plan for it. So we allocated 30,000, even if we put it somewhere combined in the second portion of this biennium to purchase another set of curriculum that we need to update.
Will it be on mathematics?
Yes, okay.
We've been behind in many things, so it's probably not about it.
Page 59, Library Media Center. Page 61, Multimedia Services. Page 63, 20 to 40. Page 65, Board of Education. Page 67, Executive Administration. Page 69, Office of the Principal. Page 71, Business Support Services. The next page is Fiscal Services. Page 75 is Risk Management Services. Page 77, Operation and Maintenance of Plant Services.
Our property insurance looks like it went up quite a bit.
Case insurance went up 15%.
Okay, is
So
that,
they predicted.
did they say what?
Did they say why?
Yeah.
Yes, a lot of SAM claims.
What claim?
SAM claims, they're sexual and misconduct claims, molestation claims.
Just across. the board.
Yes, in the state, yeah, in the
Not
state of
us.
Florida. No, absolutely not. It's
You would
just,
know about that.
we pull cases, we pull with case.
He's had some big ones that.
Right, and we, fire, we also, some of our schools were hit with the fire, some of our schools had, freeze damage, so this year has been paid a lot of claims. So that's why it's increased 15%.
It's a very small shared investment pool, so they, like if you, board members, if you ever have the opportunity to, you know, when they have, you can sit on that board if you want it, when the claims come up, it's a fun extra curricular opportunity for board members, so.
Page 79, parent and the building services. Page 81, parent and the ground services.
Can you give me a second,
Sure.
please? Let's double check this
Okay.
one. 71.
Okay.
Have a question. We had a, Brad question. Are we going to be restructuring our facilities maintenance,
Groundskeeper.
our supervisory with our changes?
Okay. Page 81, parent and the ground services. Page 83, maintenance. Page 85, security services. Page 87, student transportation services, just history, because we pay for our transportation out of 2552 vehicle operations services. Page 91, special ed transportation services. Page 93, warehousing and distribution services. Page 95, printing, publishing, and duplicating services. Page 97, other staff services, this is just history. Page 99, student systems analysis services. And I just read student something.
Is this our IT?
Yes.
Is there a way to update that name so it's more consistent with what our district calls it?
I could probably do that. Or we're page too high. Page 101, programming services. Page 103, other technology services. Page 105, long-term debt. I'm just going to disclose this. This one will be paid off in June of 22. Page 107 is our transfer fund. So what we do with the transfer fund is we have to pay some of our debt services. We have a couple loans that we have to pay for. So we transfer it out of the general fund. We help with athletics out of the general fund, so that's a transfer as well. We support a little bit with our food service, early retirement insurance, it has to be funded as well. Okay. Operating contingency on page 109. Page 111, unappropriated ending fund balance. And then I just want to spend a little time on the pie chart. So I wanted to bring to your attention, the salaries and wages is 5 million of our $10 million budget. That's just salaries and wages. The employees' benefits are 3.2 million. So it's 8.2 million of our 10 million is really spent on our staff. The rest is purchasing services, supplies, capital outlay, and other. And then transfers. So it really puts it into perspective when your general fund is 10 million, but 8 million is spent on our salaries and benefits for our staff. Okay. Is there any questions on that?
Well, that's cut down here, but,
Okay, Bill?
100,000 contingency is about
A bit low.
100,000 compared to all that. I would think it'd be a high percentage. At least, maybe I'm wrong, but that's-
We try not to use our contingency, and it could be low in other circumstances. But this last year, we didn't use it at all. We tried to make sure that we put enough into the fund function of the programs, anticipating maintenance, anticipating our buildings. But it could be, you know.
I reckon, it just seems like in the past, auditors asked to recommend. Oh, I'm not saying.
Correct.
School district, I'm talking about organizations in general, or public organizations.
So there's consensus to pick that up right here.
Just go real quick.
Sure.
We updated our policy, just this, 5 months ago or so, to work on an ending fund balance increase and contingency increase.
I think it was
3
to 5% for an ending fund balance.
Yeah, for an ending fund balance that would give us some measure of protection. Whereas when I started on this board, we had nothing in our contingency and a very, very small ending fund balance. To really the same thing. And so we've actually worked up to a better cushion of contingency and an ending fund balance that didn't hardly exist before. So at least it was our district, something in policy and something that does protect this. you know, the boiler erupts or something like that, so. I don't think the board members want to add to that.
Cold water.
Here.
This is Hattie round 2.
Patty round 2.
Look at all the food items there.
I'm glad you're never sick. You don't get sick.
I would just probably have to. Right? I wanted to bring your attention to PERS rates. I found the page. So for this year, for this biennium, the one we're currently in, our tier 1 and tier 2 rates were 14.27. Starting in the next biennium, which is 21 to 23, our tier 1 and tier 2 rates are 7.18. For officer, this year, they're 8.82%. The next biennium is 4.07. So we can't
use the Oxford one, I'm sorry.
You want the current?
I got the current, I just wanted the Oxford one.
4.07,
And then what was it before?
8.82. I was wrong, I said 8.07. Okay, let's talk about special revenue funds. So your first page is movie science and forward. This is just history. The next is ORRTI. Basically just history. Page 118 and 119 is the Willamette Promise. Page 120, 121 is our Title I. This is just history because I use 226 consistently, not going back and forth between 206 and 226. Page 124 and 125, this is formative assessment. This is the beginning fund balance that's continually to carry forward. Page 126 and 127 is Title 2A. Page 128, 129, this is history. Miscellaneous grant. 130 and 140 is MWAC.
Mid-Willamette Education Consortium
That, is that our,
manages the Perkins grants and for our region and pays for training and substitutes, authorizes programs of study which bring in our pathway.
And I have a question on page 127, sorry.
No, it's okay.
I just, you know, on the quality teacher, we don't have any FTE in there. And I understand that, but why is there 35,000 on travel?
Because this pays for professional development. This is grants that we receive from OTE for professional development for our staff.
Okay, you call that travel?
Most of the time, it goes with our audit.
Okay,
Yeah, usually they're going to that big conference in July.
okay, thank you.
Yep.
you could use this for like on-site training or instances or
Yes,
any other.
multiple things. In the past, we've just used it for audit and other questions about this. Page 132 and 133, IDEA. SPR. 134 and 135 is IDA 30. The Health and Wellness Program on page 136 and 137. We don't have this anymore. 138, 139 is title. Okay, sorry. Page 138, 139 is Title III. There is no Title III grant anymore.
Do we have any COVID recovery on Title III?
All about numbers. So if we get more English learners in, there's a nice influx, and then we could get the grant back, but at this point, we're just probably.
What's the threshold or percentage that rise, did you that drives the Title III grant numbers. Because we were like at 26%, English language learners, I think we were receiving this, so.
Yeah, I think it's 10, but I can't remember.
Okay, page 140 and 141, this is our Title IV grant. Page 142 and 143 are career pathways grant. Page 144 and 145 is the Avid College and Career Readiness. Page 146 and 147, this is our Title I-A. Page 148 and 149 is continuation of the Title I-A. Page 150 and 151 is Test for Success.
I have actually a question about Title I. Our board used to receive kind of a report of how our title funds were spent and distributed. And I'm so sorry. Our board used to receive a report on how our title funds were spent and how they were distributed. And I actually thought it was required under Title I, so I didn't have that. We haven't had that in a long time. I'm wondering if we have that. And I don't, and I know that some districts actually include that in their budget document to explain how they're spending their title funds, if they're using them for kindergarten or to reduce classroom size or to pay for instructional aids in classrooms. But I think it would be helpful for the board and the community to maybe get an update on that.
Is that something the board would like us to look into, or?
I think it's required, so.
Yeah,
We're happy to look into it.
yeah, we'll talk about that in the next board meeting.
Okay, page 1, oh, sorry.
So within the Title I funding, 8,500 restricted grant from the federal government. So there's a significant reduction in funding from 2021 to 2022. Can you expand upon that, Patty, for me, please?
Sure. In 2021, when we created our budget, we didn't have numbers of what our Title I program was. And it was $189,000 approximately. I can't remember exactly. But as long as we budget to give us spending authority, we don't spend it if we don't get it.
Okay.
So in the special revenue funds. And we know our amount this year. It's estimated to be $166,000.
Okay. Okay. All right.
Okay, Test for Success on page 150, 151. Page 152 and 153 is textbooks. Page 154 and 155, this is our E-rate. Again, if we don't get it, we don't spend it. We budgeted 30,000, but we didn't. I think it's an every other year program. So this year we're hoping to pass it. Page 156 and 157 is outdoor school. Page 158 and 159 is Title IV-A, student support and academic enrichment. Page 161 is high school success. Page 162 and 163 is our summer learning program. So this is what you were talking about, Tracy.
Yes.
Yeah. Page 164 and 165, this is the grants and contracts. This is just a placeholder in case we receive funding from ODE. We have the authority to spend the money. If we get it, I don't have to bring a resolution to the board to spend it. So it's just like a payment. Page 166 and 167 is our early retirement. For retirees insurance.
When does that finish at?
There's no one, it has sunset for anyone to be added to it. It's now a matter of time of when our staff reach the age of Medicare eligible, and I don't have, maybe, I don't have an estimate, it can be 6 years. And this is all, yeah. Our next one is food service.
That's really not big.
It has, it's an enterprise fund, and what that means to us is that it has to sustain itself.
So, Kim, like, I just have questions about that. So food services hasn't really ever been self-sustaining. It's been something that we provided support to. So I'm kind of curious about that. We've gotten federal. Sorry. So can you clarify that? Because in the past, the board has supported the nutrition program with general fund dollars
Yes.
to make sure that it's appropriately funded.
You can't support a food service in the price of general fund dollars. We transfer $4,000 into the program. And it's like a ship that can't turn on a dime. So you know that it is supposed to be self-sustaining. And you have to take measures, you can't just you can't just make quick changes because we have to service our kids. So I think this is coming off of Eat and Serve and cooking for our students. So, and now they've changed the poverty rates to be, or they have changed free lunch rates to be 3 times the poverty level. So it's really imperative that we ask all of our parents to fill out the free and reduced lunches. And having this last year and being able to feed our students, to bus lunches to them, it's been a great program. But there are steps that are being taken to make it become to become the enterprise self-sustaining fund, right? But we can't just do it overnight. It has to be in stages.
Why don't we have our salaries for our staff in like general fund?
Why do we think can't be funded on this? Because this is a program that must sustain itself. You have to pay your staff. You have to code them with, right? So our staff that work in food service needs to be coded under food service. So when I report to ODE, the cost of running this program is true and factual.
Is that,
And the actuals are uploaded to ODE as well. And so they're looking at all pieces of our spending.
is that due to the federal as well as state reimbursement for the child nutrition program? Okay. Then what's that? Okay.
Okay, page 172 and 173, this is our Student Success Act, our SIA program. Page 178 and 179 is co-curricular fund, which is athletics. Page 180 and 181, this is something new that we have put in here, is we need to get our library books updated, we need to get our libraries updated. So any rental income that we get, a portion of that is going to be in here to make sure that our libraries have purchases on a yearly basis. So when we receive the money, Brad will delegate how, break down that.
I'm glad to see this.
182 and 183 is our elementary ASBs. This is our student ASB account, fundraising and so forth. Page 184 and 185 is our middle school ASB. And page 186 and 187 is our high school ASB. Page 188 is our scholarship. Page 190 and 191 is our ESER 3 grant. We budgeted 1.5 million. We found out after our document was printed that we are actually receiving $1,435,426.
Can you back up to 182, sorry? I went to the ASB.
Yes.
So, there's a couple of lines in there that have money in them that are odd. So we had, historically we've had bookstore sales. But student organization membership dues is kind of an outlier. And there's quite a bit of proposed budget in there for that.
What line are you looking at?
17, 17, 30.
So on these, I really looked at what we budgeted for the last 2 years and I budgeted the same. So if we don't,
budgeted $500.
no, that was what we actually spent, was $500. So column 1 is what we spent for 18-19, it's our actual number of what we spent. Actuals for 1920 is what we spent in the year of 1920, and then what we budgeted for 2020. So again, with these are special revenue funds. If you don't receive the revenue, you can't spend it.
In the authority.
Right, I understand that, but we don't like the membership from our elementary students, so we don't have not there, like a parent teacher committee. We not putting money to put in there.
And that, what it could have done is if it had like 17, 31, 32, 33, it could have rolled up to just 30. So there could be other amounts. I would have to look into that. But I budgeted just like it has been budgeted in the past, just to have the spending authority.
It makes us look like there's money there, a higher amount of money than the parent teacher committee would likely raise. Or even moving between accounts in a year. Historically, so that's quite a large number, so that's why I was asking.
Sure. But if we did big fundraisers and we did earn big money, we would have a spending authority.
If we did that big of a fundraiser, we would do a supplemental here before because we make that much money. Like, I think that would be better than saying that it looked like we had potentially $1,000 of revenue. You know, I couldn't drive me, many years. So next time we have a part-time hearing. Anyway, $81,000 is a big push for $22,000. So that's for our elementary school, so just pointing that out. That shows up as revenue. I would rather see our board have to come back and do supplemental. If there was a massive fundraiser at the elementary school, and have it look like we had revenue, that much revenue difference than actually do. On that. I understand where you're coming from, but if
it's a big difference, so. Sure. Okay, so page 190 and 191 is our ESER 3 grant. This is our federal grant.
Can you tell us the number again?
1,1435426.70.
Will that be adjusted in final approval?
No, I'm gonna leave the 1.5 there. But only again spend what we're actually getting. This is an estimate. If it comes in higher, I'm just not gonna change the budget. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I get it.
And because we don't have the written, this is how we're looking to plan to spend it. Again, we have to look at fund function.
Right.
And so we put money, in different places, so we have to spend authority to spend it once we get the fine tuning that how we spend this money.
That's like supplies, construction, those kind of.
Page 194 and 195. Year 2. We're getting up to 639,000. $199, this is our Easter one that we've spent this year. So this is just history. Page 200 and 201, this is our contracted and grants. This was like a full grant that we had on the books for a few years. And it was never spent out of because we had never needed to use it. We were able to use this grant for the CDL money that we received. It's all for the debt, or the special revenue. Now we're moving on to debt service. Page 204 and 205 is the energy savings loan. So where was that from?
I'm sorry about that.
204.
Yeah. The 201. Is 400. So fund 298.
Yes, this was a pool grant and contracts that had been in the budget for like 3 or 4 years. It's 400,000 for spending authority. We've never spent it because we've never had a grant of substantial amount like this until we got the CDL.
So there was no grant for this.
No, what we did was we put in this budget, in the past, in the last 3 years, there has been a $400 bucket of grant money that could be utilized in the event that we received money from ODE. That so happened this year that we received the CDL grant to support our kids' distance learning. So we were able to use the spending authority from this grant for the CDL. And we didn't budget for it anymore because now this 298 is for the CDL, and until it goes away, till history goes away, it won't be utilized again. 298.
But wouldn't we see actuals on this?
Not until next budget year, because I won't be reporting actuals for 2021 until January of 22. Then you will see actuals. So you never see actuals of the current year, you only see what we budget. Because that's reported to ODE by January, after our audit has been completed. I'm sorry, no, year to date. No, you'll never see year to date on our budgets. Based on Oregon budget law, it's actuals for the past 2 years. Then it's our current year budget, and then it's our proposed budget. Until it's been approved and then.
So our year-to-date is on our budget, so we get money.
Yes, on your financial statements.
They just don't line up with.
this. It would line up.
No, well,
The budget amount is on you, the financials.
yeah, but not,
Not with this one.
Not with this one, no, not with that.
that's,
Correct.
right, that's what I'm talking about.
Right. I knew where you were heading.
Yes. that's
Yeah.
what I'm talking
So many numbers, you guys, so many numbers. All right, so 300 is our energy savings loan that we have. Page 206 and 207 is our PERS bond. I'm happy to say this PERS bond will be paid off in 2028. Page 208 and 209 is our general obligation bond. 210 and 211 is the demo loan payment. Now we're going to move on to capital projects, capital improvement fund. Page 214 and 215 is a fund that has been a beginning fund balance for 4 years, 3 years. Page 216 and 217 is our general obligation bond construction fund. So this is where we would pay our construction for the bond out of. And as you can see, we didn't budget for it because we are done spending. It's done. It's complete. Page 218 is our seismic grant, it's history.
Go back to 217, and there's $600,000 on there.
600,000?
Yeah,
Yes.
is that our loan or?
No, this is when we went into 2021, we still had the demolition that we had to pay for, so we had to estimate what we were gonna pay for. And so we had to finish off, there were some things that we completed in July and August of this current year, so we had a budget for spending authority. Okay. Page 218 and 19 is a seismic grant improvements, this is just history. Page 220 and 221 is our seismic grant improvement for the middle school number 1, so it's history. Page 222 and 223 is our seismic grant improvement for Jefferson Elementary School number 2. Those are completed, history. Page 224 and 225, these are the TAP grants that we received from the ODE. Not budgeting for them because we don't have them next year. Page 226 and 227, construction excise tax. Page 228 and 229. This is our old middle school improvement loan. If we use this money to improve our district. And page 230 and 231, this one is the high school seismic grant number 1. That we're hoping. Page 232 and 233 are our revenue totals and our expenditure totals.
You know, when we change that, budget hearing to budget review, what exactly are we supposed to do during that? Have any questions? Extra questions?
Yes, we asked for discussion questions.
No, the audience is after.
And right up. next.
I do believe part of that is you was our services.
While we were doing that,
Questions, so I think your view, in my mind, was the conflict was.
Yeah. Yeah, that's kind of what I just wanted to clarify, if Melissa, talking about this. Any other questions, comments?
I feel like I got my questions answered as we went through. Little sidebar discussion.
Yeah, I had a few.
Just two of
I
us.
had a few comments about the process. And this is the third year I've said here, all the detail verbiage. It seems like we're blasting through this 100 miles an hour. And there's more numbers here than you should stick at, and 90% of them are what I would call pretty rogue and just rapidly fire through them, but there's a few that kind of flag our attention. So there's kind of a part of me that says we should check those and then have some sort of a little deeper discussion on what those items are. Because what we've kind of done here along the process is someone had a little question, said, okay, we'll answer that, and the question was brief and the answer is even briefer. Does that make sense what I'm trying to say? It seems like a lot of this we can blast through, but there's a few little things that are questions on. So it kind of bogs us down. Maybe the process should be, let's flag this and we'll get later. And then at the end, you'll have like 12 things and talk about those things. That makes sense?
So
Like what we're doing is we're blasting through, I don't know how many 1,000 line items. And we stop and we look at like 10. Maybe the process should be, we just flag those and at the end, we say, hey, we have these 10 things. Let's go back and see what those are. I mean, it seems, I'm just
So
questioning.
what I'm hearing from you is for next year, perhaps doing it where we might want to have some more questions, flag those, keep moving through the budget, through the areas that are a little bit more,
Yeah.
there's no question. And then in the review process,
Go back.
go back and talk about.
Exactly. Like, there's about 5 things that we can say, oh, let's flag that, we'll go through, and then at the end, we say, okay, we have 5 things, let's go talk, take a break, we'll talk about those. Rather than stop in kind of a miniature answer to each thing. And I had another suggestion, I don't know if this is something for the board. I'm sure Hattie's been on other budgets. I haven't, this is my third time we've done here, every time it's kind of the same. Maybe it'd benefit if each person on the board, and maybe even the committee members, went to another budget meeting of another school district just to see how they do it somewhere else. This is a thought. Any comments?
Well, I myself, Tracy, Mr. Lidhart, have all been on the WESD meetings, which is a budget of over $100 million. And I've seen those done both ways, where we ask questions as we're going, or we flag them and ask them afterwards. And me personally, I like asking the question as we're going, because it's right there in front of me, and I don't have to look at that page again. For example, if Melissa had a question about PERS or something, I'd have to go back and try and find what page is that on, which is doable. But while we're going through the actual thing there, it's just a lot easier to look at and talk about. But I understand what you're thinking there. And I haven't been to the WESD for the last 2 years, but how How long did the last one take?
Last WSD meeting.
Budget meeting?
I actually had
2.5
a
hours.
family issue where I wasn't able to make it to the last one, so I don't know. It's unfortunate.
2.5 hours.
Well, I'll just give you a couple examples. So we had the question about why the PERS is so much lower. And we kind of left it and we circled back and we got the answer. And then there was a question about, well, wouldn't it be kind of nice to have a breakdown of what these FTEs are? I mean, Melissa mentioned that, so those kind of, we can discuss those, what that would look like, rather than just saying, oh, this is a question. Anyway, just a thought.
Okay, we'll take
It would, I think that going through the whole thing would go a lot quicker, and then we'd have time to go address just those sort of new issues. So, anyway, just a thought.
Okay.
Sorry.
I just, I'm probably the biggest pickle when it comes to being a board member and being a part of this budget process. And, I've been involved in various forms of government and budgeting process, from college to 3 different counties, and, how to build these, being the budget staff person in the department, built a $9 million budget and had to feed into the information, and then had to sit through community hearings, as we went through stuff. So I'm used to maybe onerous processes for budget meetings. And at the end of it, nobody's happy, right? Like you cannot spend people's money in any way, shape, or form where people are happy about it. But sometimes you can make people feel a little bit better about how money is spent. If you ever get to the point where you have to do layoffs or cuts or reductions, having a good budget document in front of you where things are really well justified or people understand the programs that are in front of them goes a really long way. Having sat on the other side and having been required to draft budget narratives for a department or for a section or for different programs, being very purposeful and intentional, knowing that the whole entire county might be reading those words, knowing like this is going to justify the 15 staff members in their positions. And, this is why we have this program in place. And these are their responsibilities. Or this is why, facilities has, $25 million in, all of that kind of stuff. I feel like it's helpful. And then working with and watching budget staff work hours and hours and hours, where you have a huge budget department versus one budget staff for a small office having, kind of bear the responsibility of a similar type document, right? So like I understand the weight of that responsibility as well. That was delegated out. Like I'm surprised that like our principals aren't writing like, hey, this is what's going on at the elementary school. This is what's programs for SPED or stuff like that. Anyway, trying to make it short. I, as a board member, I can see these numbers and we can go through them. I feel like I need a little bit more to help me understand, and we can whip through them and I can see that and I can understand some of the title stuff, but I really feel like I need to know a little bit more of that narrative, I guess. I've gotten to have a couple of budget trainings from bigger districts that mimic that process that I have been through. So I know that other districts, do that. I felt like I could open up their budget and look through it and have a good understanding about how the district spent their resources, how the funds were spent, there were definitions. where you talked about, like, you can provide a narrative to us board members and the budget committee here and tell us, oh, this is a historical page and we sunsetted that. Or I might find that in one of those other district pages. And they might have different software that allows them to do that, or maybe they edited it, I don't know. But it said, you know, this information is historical and this has been sunsetted, or this has, you know, migrated to another thing where people had breadcrumbs that they could follow. That stuff, we might get through this whole thing a lot faster. It still might take 2 meetings, I don't know. Part of the budget staff may even provide, just like Brad provided the narrative in there with the information from the governor and the funding. There might be a section that you might provide, like, hey, like, you know, we're in bargaining this year. We've written in cost of living increases of 1.5% for all of our personnel. PERS costs have dropped from, you know, 8% down to 4% for, you know, these certain employees and this to this. And it's brought our overall PERS rates down, and we've seen some savings in that. We're currently in bargaining. We've budgeted for bargaining. You know, you may see some increases in our human resources costs to, you know, cover for that, or, you know, we're anticipating a drop. I mean, we can have a little bit of narration in that where that could all be captured, you know, in a couple of paragraphs, and we might not ask those questions, and we're through this and we don't have hiccups, and our community looks at this and they feel safer and better about it. I do appreciate and understand that has worked for you, it's worked for Brad, it's worked for any administrators that might pour into that. And I know you're doing a bunch of other stuff. So anyway, that's all I got.
I think, you know, we're always open to feedback and looking at how we can do things differently. Next year, I think, you know, the desire or want to have, you know, a narrative or a little bit more explanation about things is perfectly reasonable to some degree. I mean, it is in concept. I think what I'd like to do is, you know, consider and take it back and, you know, think about our process for next year and see what is feasible, what isn't. Yeah, there is a limitation of staff time. There is a lot of work that would go into narration, and then in that narration, you know, there's always the, you know, does that open up more questions, or does it, you know, how is it written so that it doesn't answer the questions or not? Our hope is that in the 10 days that you have to review, Hattie is expecting phone calls and questions during that time to help verify anything, so that when we get to the meeting, then there's just a you know, a process of this, you know, this makes sense, this understands. And not to say that you can't have questions, obviously, but just, you know, that's another way of another avenue for people to be able to get their questions answered ahead of time. But anyway, we'll definitely take all the feedback back for next year and to heart and see about what changes we can make. Thank you.
I think it's time for audience.
Larry has I have a question. I think Larry does too. Did you have a question?
Well, I have a comment. You know, I served on this board 40 years ago. And at that time, we had some control locally of how we got our money and how we spent our money. Because we were accountable to the local voters in this district. And we had to run the budget out for a vote. And if the vote didn't pass, we didn't open the school. We didn't run the buses. But the state has taken this whole thing over. We have a 5% limitation on our local property taxes for school. Otherwise, it all comes out of general fund tax money, and all this money. They have it out. Basically, what we're doing here doesn't mean a dime, doesn't mean a thing. because it's all cut and dry. You're getting a certain amount of money, it's coming, and you're gonna spend it, and you're told how to spend it. All these things have been passed in law, how much the teachers get, how much, because that's marked there, how much the, get the, all the other things. We have no control over this thing. All these programs are all required now, everything. So basically, what we're doing here is an exercise in futility as far as local people. All we're doing is to satisfy the law, and we meet and we approve it, because the state is running the whole thing.
So my comment was similar to Larry's, what he's got more history than I do, but when I started on the board, we did have a county process, and that changed as the state took over. But my question is, this was given out, I think I received about 10 days ago, or something like that. How many questions did you get or Brad from the time these were distributed about 10 days ago to tonight?
There.
So these were important questions. If people reviewed this, then they would have gotten hold of you. And if they were important to that person or those persons, then we could have listed those out and brought those to the meeting tonight, say, this is some of the discussion questions or the questions. Let's go over these in a little bit more detail. And then following along with the idea Steve had, I think that I'm pretty sure we would get the fact there was no questions asked between these last 10 days. And that pretty much tells me what's going on.
Say, one, we always have the option to say no or to reject aspects of the budget that we don't feel are correct. The budget committee does have. Melissa, I can't hear you. with the event. Sorry. So we do have budget authority as a committee and as a board to reject the budget and to say no and to reject aspects of the budget. I've yet to see a board that's done that, right? It's viewed as disrespectful to the work that's put into it, but we do have the option to do that. If we think something's amiss, we can do it. And then
My comment to that is probably you're doing a lot of this during your regular board meetings. I don't know if the staff comes to you and say, we're gonna hire more teachers for the high school, or I don't know where those decisions are made at. But whether they're run by the board or not, when I used to serve on a board, I think we made some of those decisions of how many teachers we were gonna have and that sort of thing. We even figured out how much we were gonna pay them. You know, we made a lot of those kind of decisions. So I don't know, at the time of the budget year, it seemed to me like a lot of that stuff had already been settled. You've got your FTEs, and you know that, you know the history, you know, and if there's a big change, that should have been brought up in a board meeting. And that's where you would have gotten the questions answered rather than here.
I can comment, it's very different. The processes that I get here as a board member, where positions may be added or programs may be added or changed, are more informational, where we may have those on consent and we don't really have, I don't know that we probably ever really feel like we have the authority to deny or not approve those. I'm on another board where we have programs, or we may have extra positions that are presented to us, and we have a case that's made. There's justifications that are made, and the Oregon School Board Association Board of Directors decides whether or not there's justification or sufficient justification or not to approve it. Where we handle that differently. And I want to address Bill Linhart. I will always opt in public meeting on the record to ask any question that I have for a public document to make sure that the public hears and that my community members here and that my fellow board members here, not to have it be like in email where there can be a potential that there's a serial meeting or any other way. This is the time and this is the place for our board and our budget committee to have the questions to ask and to have them answered by district staff and by our superintendent after we have this presentation. So The 10 days is for us to review, to be able to look at it thoroughly, to make our notes. But this is the time for us to ask for questions and to have those questions answered. If I do that and ask those questions in the district office, or have that as a one-on-one, that happens in a vacuum. So I'm going to disagree with you. This is the time and this is the place on the record, so the public knows that those questions are being answered.
I understand, I'm a board member, 33 years, so I don't need your instruction notes. But what I was saying is if you have a question, then it might be a question that was asked it, phrase it, but then that comes to the board or the budget committee. And then you can say, yes, I asked that question, I would like a response. They have more time to research it and get a little bit more information, so you're getting the full deal that night and closer to it.
That's why we schedule a second meeting, if we need a second meeting.
Brad?
I was gonna say that there's a nuance that when asking questions, yeah, it's kind of what Steve was talking about in terms of, we want to go a little deeper and have a better understanding of something. So you call us and we answer those questions so that when we come here, you can still ask the question so that everybody can hear it. And like Bill just said, like, I know I called and we talked about this, but can you, explain to the audience, whatever. But in terms of going the need to go deeper and drill down would already be, if you had those questions, would already be handled because we would have discussed that and also, like Bill said, we'd have time to look it up if there was a need to do that. If having to research something or whatever. So there's a nuance. It's not that we don't want to stop people from having questions in a public meeting. It's just, addressing some of the deeper pieces and then answering here. So, nuance.
Yeah, my question was directed towards Patty there. So in all your years of experience and everything like this, is this typically in other districts that you've worked at and everything else, is this typically the format that you present a budget in? Yeah. Okay, I mean, that was kind of my question on that. I mean, I've been on LBCCs and some other committees and things like that at the same time. I've seen it presented different ways depending upon who's doing the presentation, so.
If you look at LC, if you look at Cascade, if you go out and look at their budgets online,
Yeah.
They're very similar to ours.
Okay, that was really my biggest question there was that, I mean, are we following with what other districts are doing and things like this? I agree that there's always room for improvement in processes where you direct that information out to the public so that they have an understanding. I think one of our biggest issues here in the Jefferson area is that people don't come and address it to the people that can answer the question. And that's what I invite everybody out there to do. If there is a question, to get a hold of you and get an answer. And I agree with what some other committee members and board members are saying that, we if there's questions that are being asked to you, maybe it's something that we didn't know, and just having a little bit of that information on what questions were asked, type situation. Hey, this was asked at this time and this was our answer. Is there any other question here? And even with Steve's on, as we race through it, as it seems like we're going line item, I try to review it a little bit if I have a check mark or something. Half the ones that I had checked are answered by somebody else that's quicker with their cup than I am. Quick draw my cup. So thank you.
Well, last year was the first year I was at the, and I know I drilled Patty with, I don't know how many questions. And I had them all just wrote out. And it helped me immensely to call her first and go through everything, have her answer questions for me, so I didn't waste everybody's time on things. Although I did bring them up, if I was bound in the term when we were gonna have textbooks, there was no money for textbooks, and I didn't like that. But I'm glad to see there's textbook money.
And library.
And library books,
We had
yes.
that conversation last year.
We did.
Library.
Yes, we did. But I think it's good because you have time to look it up too, and you know what I'm gonna ask when I'm.
Tracy?
Statement.
We're
course of my term as position number 5 on the board, we get a board packet once a month. It has lots of different information. If I see something that seems to be misleading or I just don't understand it, my tendency is to pick up the phone and contact the district office and talk to the individual who's responsible for that information, whether it be financial or whether it be for the superintendent. I get my question answered, and then when I get to the board meeting, I re-ask that question because I think it's important for the board itself to understand my rationale in asking that question, number one, for the sake of not the board, but for the public. And my questions are answered, and it's given ample time to the staff at the district office to take and generate a response to that question. Sometimes I don't get my question answered that very same day. Sometimes it's a day and a half, 2 days later. But still, with respect to the monthly board meeting, my question gets answered prior to, and then it's being able to be brought forth to the board, but most important to the general public who have placed us in these seats.
You could say that was our audience time.
No.
No, we have some.
I don't have any Q&A. I don't have anyone asking any questions. I have 3 attendees, Kathy, Lisa, Tracy.
Can you repeat that, please?
Kathy,
Three, no,
Tracy.
just how many attendees?
Oh, 3.
3 attendees?
Mhm.
Okay.
Let me check my email really quick. Oh, no, I don't have anything on my email. Spam. Yeah, I always check it just to make sure because I get all these weird emails in here.
I did a search.
At this time, I'll entertain a motion to approve the proposed budget.
Okay, I move to approve the Jefferson School District 14-day budget committee. The 2020-2021 fiscal year proposed budget tax rate of 4.8468 per thousand, assessed value for operating purpose in the general fund.
Amendment. You misstated the calendar years incorrectly.
It's 2021, 2022.
You said 2020, 2022.
2021, 2000. Can't read very good.
I second the motion.
And second. Vote.
Discussion.
Is there any discussion on the proposal to approve the budget?
Can you repeat, with the clarification, can you repeat, isn't the, we're doing a, one per 21, 22. And can you just repeat the, I'm sorry, can you just
Okay.
repeat the?
Yeah, you want me to review?
Yes, please.
So my motion was I move to approve the Jefferson School District 14-day budget committee approve the 2021-2022 fiscal year proposed budget and the tax rate of 4.8468 per $1,000 assessed value for operating purposes in the general fund.
That's when we adopted. When we budget.
So there's been a motion and second concerning discussion.
Yeah. Yeah, I have a, so what we need to do right here with this motion,
It's stated wrong, isn't it?
it is. Same.
Okay, so let's just start over.
We actually
have to
vote,
We have to vote on the,
we have to vote on the voting.
What's wrong with the motion?
we're not levying taxes tonight.
I move to approve the
board has
budget presentation.
Yeah.
Let's let it read.
Yeah, but okay, can I just take up, or do we have to vote on?
We either have to, you either have to amend it, or we have to.
Okay, so I'll amend it.
Or
We have to approve the.
we have to not
You have to not
Vote
pass it.
for a vote right now, we gotta nail it down. So we can restate it.
Just a minute.
Okay. I move to amend it. I move for the Jefferson School District 14-day budget committee to approve the 2021-2022 fiscal year proposed budget.
Now,
Can I second that amendment?
okay. Now, is there any discussion on corrected amendment? Proposal to approve the budget?
We still have to go through Robert's rules.
Okay, so we need to now, if you need to call a roll vote to see if we accept the
Yeah.
change.
All right. Are just the board on?
No, everybody.
Okay,
So we're voting on the amendment.
okay, voting on the amendment, so we'll go on Bill.
I'm voting yes.
Larry.
Aye.
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 I,
Aye.
Aye. So now the amendment has been approved.
So now we're voting on the motion.
So now we're gonna vote on the motion. And we'll go around the room. Bill.
I'm abstaining. So I'm not one of the things that there's-
Okay.
Community Parks and Rec.
Larry. Melinda.
Aye.
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 Judy.
Aye.
I,
Aye.
Aye.
Bill, I felt like we fixed that. I felt like we fixed that, Bill.
Okay, I now,
I felt like we fixed that after talking through.
here,
You might be missing out there in June, I think, so I just.
Okay, so before we adjourn, I'd just like to thank all of you guys for being there, Steve, Bill, Larry, and Melinda. Thank you for your time. Beth, and everybody else too.
Thank you. Thank you, Helen. Like I said, we're still having all these.
But it is a good idea probably to have more narrative. So
I still don't understand why they changed that motion. Proposed budget tax. Everybody's gonna change things, and that might mess us up if everyone's waiting for change. What she's gonna try to do now is say, oh, Amber keeps doing everything wrong. If she does that, that's not gonna feel right. Here's where we like, I know, but what you were doing was you were approving the proposed budget.
some questions.
And,
Or-